Hey friends, this is SURABHI, the Passionate Physio, and we are here talking about one of my favorite passions, which is pleasure. And I'm just adjusting my tripod here and letting people come in. Hey friends. So we are talking about, hey friends, we're getting into the topic of orgasms and pleasure today. So I am so pumped. Right off the bat, I'm running a workshop on February 23rd. We're going to be moving our bodies. We're going to be embodying pleasure in our bodies through movement, through breath, through releasing tension and pain that we're holding. And I hope that you'll join me. If you can't make it live, yes, there will be a replay. A lot of people have been asking that because I know the time doesn't always work for everyone. Hey, friends. But we're going to get right into the topic today. I'm going to give you 4 tips to maximize your pleasure and have better orgasms. And when I say this, I almost feel like I'm like a Cosmo magazine, right? Like, have you ever flipped through Cosmo and it's like four tips to better orgasms? But this is actually advice from a pelvic health physical therapist and a mom of 2, and I know how real life is. So we're gonna get into the first point or tip that I have for you. It is presence. You cannot feel pleasure if you're not actually present in your body. Have you ever had the most decadent piece of chocolate cake, but you've been on your phone, ate the whole piece, and you're like, wait, where did that chocolate cake go? Or you're having a giant bowl of popcorn, or like you're watching a movie and you finish the whole bag, you don't even notice you're eating it. That is because you're not present in your practice of eating. The same goes for sex. The same goes for pleasure. If you're not actually present, if you're thinking about your to-do list, if you're worried about what you look like, if you're worried about anything, if you're anxious about anything during sex, during pleasure, whatever pleasure means to you, whether you're solo, whether you're partnered, you're using toys, whatever you're doing, if you're not present, that's going to be the first problem for you problem in terms of receiving pleasure. So how do you cultivate presence? Because I'll tell you honestly, half the time I'm eating and I'm scrolling. I'm not even noticing what I'm doing. I'm going out for a walk. We see people listening to headphones on their phone. So they're not present even while walking. People are sitting on the toilet pooping and they're on their phones. So we are constantly connected to screens, and screens are great for, especially over the pandemic, connecting to our friends, but they take away our ability to be present in our body. So simple ways to cultivate more presence during your day. For 1 meal a day, put the phone away. If you're already doing that, for 2 meals a day, put your phone away. If you're using your phone on the toilet, don't. Put it away. Put it to the side and just focus on what your body's actually feeling like when you're eating, when you're drinking, when you're going for a walk, when you're doing your power. We're not talking about power today. We're talking about pleasure, and power is a totally different conversation. But this is and this conversation is specifically for folks with vulvas, but this can apply to absolutely anyone, right? Anyone who wants to experience more pleasure. Presence is the first thing we're going to cultivate. During my workshop, we're going to practice how to do this. When I tell people to cultivate more presence, they're like, yeah, I need that. But then they don't know actually how to go about doing it. I've shared some examples in this live today, but it goes beyond that. Practicing presence in our bodies are so important, especially for anyone who's had a history of trauma or abuse, or high stress. We become so disconnected with our bodies. Have you ever gone the whole day and not drank water, not eaten a meal? You're just drinking coffee. Have you ever gone the whole day and you haven't even visited the bathroom? That's a lack of connection. That's a disconnection, a disembodying from our humanity, from our bodies. And we treat ourselves like robots, like we don't need to do these basic things. I got into the habit of staying up way too late, ignoring my body's cues that I was tired and need to go to bed, right? And I was like, I got to get this thing done. I got to get this email done. I got to get this post done. And that's disconnection to yourself. That's going to affect your sex life. That's going to affect your orgasms. Because when you're practicing disconnecting to yourself, guess what's going to happen then when you want to feel connected to yourself, when you want to maximize pleasure, you're not going to be able to cultivate that as a practice. So we need to practice presence, right? Tip number 1, we're going to practice that in my workshop. So come join me on February 23rd. For those of you who are joining now, I'm having a Reclaim Your Pleasure workshop from 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yes, it's going to be recorded and sent to anyone who registers, because I know not everybody will be able to make it live. I hope you do join me live though, because it's going to be fun. And then I'm sharing my second tip, which exercises will give fast results for knees and back pain. This is not this is not for knee or back pain. We're talking about pleasure. So you're asking the wrong person at the wrong time, and there's no quick results. I'm sorry to burst that bubble. There's no magical exercise that fixes everything, fixes pain with sex, fixes back pain and knee pain. Strengthen your body, strengthen your glutes especially. It's going to help you in the short and long run. Hey, Sunitha. You know, and one thing that I will say is oftentimes when I'm talking about these topics, you'll get all the trolls or the bots. So some questions may not be appropriate. Okay, next we're going to get into the slight anterior pelvic tilt with tailbone pain. Any suggestions? So if you have an anterior pelvic tilt, that's actually quite normal. Anterior pelvic tilt refers to the way the pelvis is positioned. Most of us, especially people with vulvas, we tend to stand with a bit more anterior pelvic tilt. And that can be magnified postpartum when your abs generally tend to have more stretch like mine do, right? And it on its own is not a problem. Not a problem to have an anterior pelvic tilt. But if you have tailbone pain, that can become a problem. Tailbone pain is often from people actually having a posterior pelvic tilt, tucked their tailbone in, pinching their butt cheeks, sitting down with a big slouch. So change that posture, not permanently. I don't expect anyone to be able to sit up straight forever, but start to get into that upright posture where you're actually sitting on your butt bones. I'm gonna bring my pelvis model over here. So instead of sitting on your tailbone over here, right? Oops, that was the uterus that just fell out. Instead of sitting on the tailbone, sit on these butt bones. See how big and strong these bones are? When you sit on the butt bones, you release, you let that tailbone open. You avoid putting as much pressure on it because the tailbone is actually a really important piece of the puzzle. All of the pelvic floor muscles, they attach, not all of them, but a lot of them attach to the tailbone. A lot of the gluteals attach to the tailbone. You've got your hamstrings coming out from the back. So when this is hurting, it's not necessarily pelvic floor issues, but it can be, right? Can you talk about how relaxing or lengthening pelvic floor help with orgasm? How to achieve that? Yes, that's going to be, we're going to get into the second point, okay? So we talked about 4 tips to increase your pleasure. First was presence. The second is your breath. And with breath comes the relaxation and lengthening of the pelvic floor muscles. So one great analogy I have is, we all use the biceps as an analogy, so it's kind of easy to remember, right? So Sunitha, try it out and let me know how it feels, okay? And come attend my workshop. I'm going to show you manual ways and stretches and mobility exercises to release that tension around the tailbone. Because you're not alone. A lot of people, men, women, non-binary folks, everyone, a lot of the people these days, they sit too much. We sit too much and we start to have pressure and heaviness in the tailbone. So you're not alone, and you're going to learn some great ways to release that tension and pain, and then just receive more pleasure in your body. And everyone thinks pleasure is always sex. Sex is great. Orgasms are great, but pleasure is for every single person, every single day, right? Our kids enjoy, they love pleasure. They're sitting out, they're playing, that's pleasure for them, that's joy for them. What's pleasure for you? And that's what we have to define for ourselves. So, Heliday, sorry, I don't know your name. The breath is hard to achieve properly. The breath is, I want you to change that mindset. Because when we think, oh, it's so hard, it has to be proper. There's that mental block. You are excellent at breathing. The only thing that we are all great at doing is breathing. Because if we sucked at it, we would be dead, right? This the first thing we did when we were born was breathing. We took a breath. Breathing is our superpower. But we can modify, or not even modify, we can shift our breath to expand our diaphragm, our rib cage. We can relax the belly, relax and lengthen that pelvic floor. Because when you actually take a full diaphragmatic breath, you allow your belly to relax. You're not sucking in your gut all the time. And you allow your belly to relax. You allow your pelvic floor to relax. Guess what happens? You restore normal muscle length and tension. Then as you exhale, the muscles come together. We're going to practice breathing during my workshop. We're going to spend about 20 minutes channeling our breath. We're going to spend about 20 minutes channeling our presence in our body. I'm going to walk you through a visualization and a meditation to actually find how that feels to your body. to breathe fully, to let go of that tension in your pelvic floor. When you have tension in your pelvic floor, I also want to know, why is there tension there? Many people just accept, oh, I've got a tense pelvic floor. But why? Why? And many of the times it's chronic stress, lack of sleep, dehydration, lack of fiber. They're constantly straining for poop. So there's a cycle of things that kind of all tie in together that creates an environment that causes you to clench nonstop. When you are clenching nonstop, let me tell you, your orgasms are going to be weak, or they're going to be really strong, but they're really short, right? You're not going to have that full capacity to experience a good orgasm. And this goes for people with penises too, because there's a lot of folks with penises who think they have no issues, but they do too, right? When you are stressed, that's going to impede your pleasure. It's going to make you feel less present in your body. You're going to breathe more shallow. You're not going to get that full diaphragmatic expansion. That's going to affect your pelvic floor, and everything kind of goes in this negative downward spiral. And then you're wondering, why did things hurt? Why are my orgasms so weak? Why am I having trouble achieving orgasm? Why is it actually painful to get there, right? All of these things kind of tying together. So the second part is your breath, achieving good breath, which is what we're going to go over in my workshop to reclaim your pleasure. That's on February 23rd for those of our friends who just joined. My link in bio has all the details. You can sign up. Yes, you're going to get a replay. So if you missed the live, don't worry about it. You can rewatch it too if you do show up live and you just want the replay. Point number 3 is going to be about, this is specifically in relation to orgasm or partner sex. Foreplay. Foreplay is key. For anyone who's a mom here, you know that, pre-kids, you had your date nights, you got dressed up, you had a night out, you spent the day together, you had relaxed time, there's no pressure, there's no screaming children or babies. That's all part of foreplay. It's not just the 10 minutes before sex. It's foreplay's what's going on before the activity that you want to be doing, that you consider sex. Sex is not just intercourse, by the way. It could be oral, it could be manual stimulation. There's so many things that sex, the umbrella term of sex, describes. But whatever that is, you need a longer foreplay, minimum 30 minutes. Always tell people, set a timer. If you don't believe me, minimum 30 minutes. Keep your hands away from your pelvic floor, your pelvis. Focus on massage, full body massage, everywhere else but your pelvic floor. By the time you actually, for example, if you have intercourse, I want your pelvic floor to be well lubricated. So I want you to be wet, especially, I'm talking to the vulva owners here. I want your clitoris. So let's talk clitoris, right? The clitoris is big. What we see on the outside is this little dot. That's the glans, and it's covered by a hood. So you've lifted the hood back, you get a glans, clitoris. You've got the bulbs, and you've got the crux, right? So this sits and hugs the vaginal canal. This is why most people can't orgasm just through intercourse. They need manual or oral clitoral stimulation for it to actually be good. Some people can orgasm through intercourse, but it's proposed that the reason is because of the clitoral stimulation that occurs inside the vagina. But most people need that direct clitoral stimulation. So don't just go attack that right away. Think foreplay, longer foreplay, because we want that clitoris. Clitoris is like the same idea as a penis. We want it to be engorged and filled with blood, right? So that it's puffier, it's bigger, because then you're going to be that means you're more aroused. If you're not aroused, of course, you're not going to have a good orgasm. Of course, it's not going to feel as pleasurable. It can actually feel kind of dry or painful or frictiony, right? So there's a lot. And I'm just looking back at Sunitha's question. I can hear this cracker kind of sound when I move my neck. Again, off topic, friends. We're going to stay on topic here. Appreciate the question, but it's not the point of this conversation. Okay, we're going to get into our last tip. So we talked about presence, we talked about breath, we talked about foreplay, and the last is the belief that you can have fantastic orgasms, the belief that you deserve pleasure. There's research that shows that people who are identify as women, they actually think that men are entitled to orgasms more than women. So if we believe that men are more entitled to it, what's our experience going to be? So when there's subpar sex, we don't orgasm, we're like, I guess at least the man orgasmed. so I should be happy with that. No, I want you to, hey Veba, I want you to feel entitled to pleasure, whether it's solo or partnered. You are deserving of pleasure. And when you start believing that and you start reclaiming that power for yourself without waiting for your partner to figure out that, oh yeah, I guess I need to put more effort in. You start saying, you know what? This is something that I need. Especially, I'm talking specifically here for partnered couples, whether you're married or, your long-term relationship. This should be a conversation and a communication. My husband doesn't want me to have bad orgasms, right? We're in a partnership. We want each other to experience pleasure. So we need for each other to communicate about what we need. And listen, historically, culturally, socially, our society is not at the stage yet where we're outwardly talking about women's sexuality. We're just now talking about it, right? More and more. And I'm Indian. Like, how many Indian women are talking about this? I know like 3 or 4, right? There's not that many. So the more of us start talking about it within our households, the better, more liberated we're going to feel. It's really hard to have a fantastic orgasm if you feel like you're doing something wrong when you're having an orgasm, right? If you hold a lot of shame. So during my workshop, we're going to work on releasing that shame, releasing that feeling of guilt, and just be receptive and open to pleasure. You're going to feel a little bit more connected to your pelvic floor. We're going to be moving, we're going to be dancing. I'm going to show you some moves that help you activate your pelvic floor, but also lengthen that pelvic floor. Hey, Chandra. Females don't even talk about period yes. And let me tell you, all of these things are normal. They're normal things. Periods are normal. Sex is normal. But we make these topics taboo as if anything to do with vulvas is dirty. But this is, if you have little kids don't grow up thinking their body parts are dirty. They learn that messaging. They learn that messaging at an early age, at the age of 3, 4. Even how we talk about their body parts. If their hands touch their vulvas or their penises. We're like, oh, no, as if it's like a bad thing. We can teach them, don't touch that out in public, but at home, it's your body. Do we yell at them when they touch their shoulders? No. So how come we're so uncomfortable with the fact that they're touching themselves, especially in the comfort and safety of their own home, right? And so we need to talk about this, and we need to get comfortable saying these words ourselves before we can expect our children to learn from us. And that's exactly, honestly, my goal for 2023, my 2 main words were lead and pleasure. So I want to lead these conversations because guess what? I sound comfortable talking about it, but it takes work for me to talk about it too. Because just like many of you, I grew up with a lot of sexual shame. And I say sexual shame, but literally we never uttered the word sex in our household. When there was a kissing scene, like, Bollywood movies and stuff, my parents would like look awkwardly. We would turn the channel or, it was so awkward. And now as an adult, I have compassion for younger me growing up in that environment. I have compassion for all of you growing up in religious or culturally oppressive environments that didn't allow you to explore your sexuality, right? But here's the key message. It's never too late to get there. It's never too late to learn about your body. I don't care what age you are. It's never too late to learn how to have you're Indian too, so you get it, right? And one thing that I've been talking to a lot of my clients are also white or black, and they also get it because we think it's unique to our culture, but misogyny and patriarchy is unique. It's not unique. It's worldwide. It's global, right? And so when you talk to guys, they are more open, typically, right, to talking about sex. Not that they're talking about their sex lives in detail, or if they're having problems, not that they're talking about it. But it's just generally assumed that men will masturbate, that men, have sexual thoughts. But as soon as you then say, but women or people who have vulvas also have sexual thoughts, they also masturbate, suddenly people get awkward about it. There's nothing to be awkward about. This is just facts, right? We can either talk about it or pretend that it doesn't exist. And the less we don't talk about it, or the less we keep this in secret or, hide it, the more shame there is, right? So it's time to break the stigma and reclaim your pleasure. I will share the link to my stories again. You can save your spot for my workshop. Early bird registration is on for another week, so grab your spot now. And if you have any questions, hey friends, I know some of you are just popping in now. We just talked I'll save this live as long as Instagram doesn't glitch on me. We went over 4 key tips to improve your pleasure. If you're not on my email newsletter, you need to be on it because I send these tips out there too. So they're the first one of my friends to get all the downloads. When you go to buy my workshop, there's a checkbox. You can add yourself to my newsletter there too. Hey Anita. Any last questions before we wrap up? I'm going to go have some lunch and I have some clients this afternoon. So I loved this conversation. I loved your input. I know I had some non-pelvic floor related questions, but for all of you who asked pelvic floor related things, thank you so much. Relaxing and lengthening your pelvic floor muscles will let you have a good muscular contraction, which you need for orgasm, right? If you're already clenched, you're going to clench from here to here. Tiny orgasm. If you're nice and relaxed, you have much more room for contraction and intensity and strength and power for your orgasm too, right? We all want better orgasms. It literally helps with our lives. Helps with mental health. Helps with cardiovascular health, mood, well-being. It helps you feel more connected to your partner. If you're solo, having solo orgasms is fantastic for your health, your confidence, apparently your skin too. Like there's many reasons that we want more orgasms. But remember, nobody owes you an orgasm. It's up to you to give it to yourself. So what I mean by that is going back to presence. It's not your partner's fault if you're not getting better orgasms because it requires you to get to know your body first and then claim that for yourself, right? Guide your partner, communicate with your partner. But if you don't know what you need first, that's the first step. Right? We can't be, a lot of people are like, oh, my partner doesn't do this, but also have you communicated your needs? And are you familiar with what you actually need, what you actually like in the first place, right? Awesome, friends. Thank you so much. Any last questions or comments, drop it in the chat and I will answer, or send me a DM and I will do it on my next live. I'll do a live next week too, at around the same time. Thank you so much. Very well explained, the importance of the 4 tips. Thank you so much, Sudhini. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. I hope that I am. Is there resources out there for that? For what? Resources for my tips, you mean? Or for conversations to have with your partner? Conversations to have with your partner. I share to my stories a lot of great sex positive pages and accounts. So when you follow me, I often share. There's fantastic resources out there. There's Sex Positive Families, which is an account. There's Erica Smith. She's a sex counselor. There's many sex counselors. It's important to find people who speak to you because not everybody is going to relate to you and your experience. So if you are queer, if you are, if you're from a different marginalized community, there's so many options, right? But practicing these things for yourself is the first step. Many people, they're trying to get to step 10. Baby, we got to be in step 1 first, right? Stage 1, get our toes wet, get ourselves feeling comfortable with our sexuality, our libido, our desires, and then we can, boom, share that, right? So I can't wait. I'm so excited that you're here, and I'm excited for those of you who are joining me for the workshop live, or again, like I said, there's a replay. So if you miss the live for any reason, if you can't make it because of the time zone difference, it's all good. You're gonna get the replay. Thanks so much, friends. Have a fantastic rest of your day and find some presence next time you're eating or next time you're on the toilet. Many people feel called out when I say that, but hey, I've been there too, and we can all get better at practicing presence in our bodies. Bye, friends.